Hello and welcome to the course. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. This is something I'm super excited to be sharing with you. I've been writing with AI for about a year or so, and I've been a screenwriter for a while. And so putting these things together and being able to share what I've discovered already, and then going on the journey together, and then sharing afterwards what we've all found is something that is just a real joy for me. And it's a really exciting time for writers, because I think writers are the best placed people to take advantage of these new innovations in AI. To give you a sense of how this course is going to work, I've split it up into different modules, and each module covers a different area of the writing journey, right from the creation through to interacting with the industry. At the beginning of each module, you'll hear a little bit from me, like this, saying hello, and giving you a sense of what's in this module so that you can decide if it's the right thing for you to watch right now, or if you want to jump around and watch things in a different order. So Module 1, Course Introduction, there's a lesson about me, so you understand a little bit who I am, how to get the most out of the course, and also I'm going to talk about some of the assumptions I have for who you are and what you need to get from this course. So without further ado, let's jump in. Hello and welcome to the course. My name is Stephen Follows, and I'm going to be your instructor. I wanted to give you a little summary of who I am so you get a sense of where I'm coming from before we dive into the course. So I do a number of different things, but the best way to describe it is I do film data analysis, I'm a screenwriter myself, and I also spend a lot of time teaching at film schools and business schools around the world. And so I'm sort of the intersection of all those things. But I also have a sort of creative life to myself as well. So I do a lot of left brain, right brain thinking. That's kind of where I'm interested. And so when I was trying to work out how to sum myself up briefly here so that you could feel like you met me, I realized that actually there are sort of two axes to all my work. I do things around systems and I do things around art. So the systematic systems, this is the data analysis that I do that you may have read about. So this is looking at the film industry primarily and using data as a lens to try and understand how things work. So, for example, I've written a report called Cut Out of the Picture, which was a big study that took about a year or so that looked at gender inequality in the UK film industry. So an important topic, but very sort of using systems to try and understand how the systems work. And in that case, I'm trying to understand how the film industry works and then share it with people. But sometimes it can be a bit lighter as well. So arty systems. So using data analysis and systems analysis to try and understand fun things. Like, for example, I've written a definitive article as to whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. I won't spoil it here. I'll link it in the notes below. But I go into far too much detail and far too many charts to try and give you a more nuanced answer than simply yes or no. And then also, I like to do systematic art. So I have set up and run a story agency called Catsnake. And we do a lot of charity fundraising for some of the biggest charities in the UK. So we do a lot of legacy work for WWF and the RSPB and UNICEF and people like that. And that's a little still from a commercial that we made using Aardman animation for the RSPB, which is the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. And then finally, I do arty art. So I'm a screenwriter myself, and that's a couple of stills from a short film called Sign Language that I wrote that did reasonably well at various festivals and things, and links to all those things are down below. So that gives you a sense of the intersection of what I do, and it kind of makes sense that I ended up involved in the creative use of AI in storytelling and script writing. And that journey was sort of in the beginning part of 2022, when a colleague, someone I often work with, who's a particle physicist in Sweden, a Venezuelan who lives in Sweden, and for his Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job is trying to study the early universe. But he and I often team up on interesting projects where he gets to do sort of more arty things with his science, and I get to do more sciencey things with my art. And together, we were starting to play with AI. And we reached out to a number of people in the film industry and said, hey, we think AI has hit this point where we'd be able to do something interesting. Do you want to support us? And we managed to find a producer who was willing to support us. So we can't tell you the name of the person. You've definitely heard of movies they've made. But part of the deal is what we've actually written for them and how we've done it and things like that are private. But the ideas that we generated and the things that we've learned, we can share. So it felt like a good trade-off there. And so they gave us a development deal on WGA terms. So it's not a union deal because Neither us nor the AI are in the union, but it's still on those sort of terms, and so they treated us like early writers. And in that particular case, we were trying to use the AI to develop all the ideas and provide all the feedback and do all the writing. In this course, we're talking about co-writing with an AI. So the AI is supporting us as the primary writer. But on this experiment that I did with Elial, the whole idea was to provide no human creative input or feedback and sort of create loops that would create the script. We also created a podcast called Authored by AI, where we interviewed some of the top people in film and AI about what the situation may look like in the future and some of the effects of the things coming down the pike. There's links to that below. And then finally, we have a number of other projects in the film industry involving AI, involving writing, that you'll start to see more of and hear more of as they come out into prominence. If you want to have a look at some of the stuff I've written in the past, whether it's the arty art, the systematic systems, or anywhere in between, then check out my website, stephenfollows.com. But in the meantime, thanks for spending the time to get to know me, and I can't wait to jump straight into this course. Before we begin, I just wanted to set out some of the ways that you might be able to get the most out of this course. The course will be here for you whenever you need it. So some people like to just run in and watch everything. Other people like to be able to do it a bit more orderly or do a little lesson and then come back to things. However you engage with it, it's up to you. My advice would be watch through all the lessons first. You might want to play as you hear some of them. That's perfectly fine. But there might also be ideas later on in the course that actually inform some of the earlier work that you want to do. I've structured the course in the journey of writing a film, say from a blank bit of paper, coming up with ideas, fleshing it out, rewriting it, and then getting to the industry and feeding back to the industry what they need. But it might well be that some of the ideas that are used in AI co-writing that come up later in the course might be useful for you in early stages. So I would suggest that you sit down, get comfortable, watch through the lessons, and then start to go back to them and actually use the things that we're talking about in each lesson after you've watched the whole thing. The important thing is to not try and think of this as an exercise in theory. This should be in practice. So start using the AI. If you want to be noodling while you're listening to the lessons, that's a great idea. You know, you've got one tab open listening to the lessons, and then in the other you're playing around with an AI. But as soon as you feel like you've started to get the ideas of what I'm talking about, jump in, just start using it. It'll start becoming clearer and clearer to you as you actually do it. Going through the lessons, I would suggest that you remember that you're a screenwriter first. And what I mean by that is that we're not doing stuff in theory, we're not doing stuff in AI or in science. We're trying to create powerful, moving writing, whatever you want it to be. And so don't think about trying to think about the perfect way of doing something or what is the scientific correct way. Think about, as a screenwriter, how do I get to where I want to be? And if where I want to be is creating great work, then whatever method you use with interacting with the AI, that's perfectly fine. Whatever works for your script is the right thing to do. Next, I'd suggest that you share what you discover. AI is in such an embryonic stage, and we're all just learning how to use this and how the prompts might work and how we might iterate. And you are, by just listening to this now, at the very frontier of co-writing. And so you will discover things that I haven't seen, that other people haven't seen. And so please do share them, whether you share them within the course structure or whether you share them on Twitter or on Discord or anywhere else. Just talk to people about what you find, because that's how we're all going to lift each other up and share what we discover. Finally, my main advice, above and beyond everything else, the thing that's helped me in the last year or so in trying to understand how AI works with co-writing, play. Just play with it. If you want to be really targeted about what you're creating, that's fine. But sometimes I find you have to dance around it a little bit. You have to try and break the AI. You have to try and trick it. You have to ask it to do stupid things. And in doing so, you discover a bit more about how it works, a bit more about what you were after, and maybe some hidden tricks that we didn't think would work. Remember, the people that have created the AIs don't really understand how it's learned, and they certainly don't understand how to use it, because that's something that only we can all discover as we do it. So try and be unusual. Try and be creative. Try and trick it. Try and think of something different. And you'll see that along the way. Some of the lessons that I've got in this course use some pretty strange techniques. But if they produce what we want and they help us as a screenwriter, then fantastic. So go out there and play. Now, one of the lessons a moment ago was introducing myself to you. And bizarrely, I'm now going to introduce yourself to me. Well, at least I'm going to define the assumptions I'm making about you. So some of these things might not be the case for you. And so I thought it would be useful to set it out straight away so that you can, if you feel disconnected from any part of it, maybe you can trace it back to here and say, I can see that Stephen's assumed this, and actually that's not where I am. And that might help you be able to connect with the lessons a bit better. So the first thing I'm assuming is that you are a screenwriter. You don't have to be published. You don't have to be professional and paid. Your house doesn't have to be bought with your screenwriting, but it's something that you identify with. And so you care deeply about screenwriting and you take the time to actually create words on the page. That doesn't have to be the case, but that's what I'm assuming. So whenever I talk about us or we or our perspective, I'm talking about screenwriters. Secondly, that you have some idea or have access to screenwriting theory. So that you may have gone on a whole degree level course and been at college for screenwriting, or it may be as simple as you've read a book like Save the Cat or Story or something like that. It doesn't matter. Certainly your level of screenwriting theory isn't going to affect your ability to work with the AI. Obviously it'll affect your writing, but that's something that you already know, that spending more time on it makes you better. But there may be things where I gloss over talking about different plot structures and things like that. Because my aim here is not to teach you screenwriting, it's to how you can improve your screenwriting when co-writing with an AI. So if you find that there are points where I'm not defining character enough or plot or something like that, that's probably a good cue for you to go and buy a book or go on a course online that talks a bit more about the screenwriting theory. Thirdly, I'm going to assume that you're curious about AI. Now, the important word here is curious, not pro or anti. I'm not making an argument for AI. I'm not saying you should use it, and we certainly shouldn't think it's fantastic in all cases. But I am assuming that you're curious. And curious is really important at this point in AI because we're still learning how it all works. And so by playing around with it, you're going to discover it. So I'm going to be giving you little ideas and curious things for you to go and play with the AI, little prompts and concepts. And so I'm going to assume that each time I do, you go, ooh, I can't wait to go and try that and sort of see what that works. And then finally, you're keen to evolve your writing process now. So it's not about transforming everything overnight, but it is about saying, okay, I am going to actually go and engage with this. I'm going to think about how I write, how I create, and the things I want to do differently. And I'm going to jump in and use AI right now. This isn't a course that's all theory. This is a course that's setting up some principles and then setting you free to go do this. So I'm going to assume that that's what you're dying to do. And we're just about to jump into the lessons and you can't wait to start.